Hello, happy Tuesday. We're going to do the blind tasting clue review for last Thursday's game, which was Palomino from Sherry region and the style Amontillado. And for the game, a lot of people had an easy time getting to Sherry and getting Palomino, but going between the different styles of Sherry was difficult. I had guesses, everything. I had a lot of Fino guesses, Manzanilla guesses, also quite a bit of Oloroso. Palo Cortado was kind of pretty much a wash. If you were thinking Palo Cortado and it's Amontillado or vice versa, you're pretty much in the right boat. But I wanted to take some time with the clues to kind of go into what was pointing to those different styles, because Amontillado in particular is a total favorite for examiners to feature. You figure with the Fortified wine exam, there's only so many wines that can be featured, so the pool of options are kind of small. And Amontillado is a favorite because it's very distinctive and it reflects its unique process with winemaking. And so we're going to talk about those details. So let's go over the clues. So clue 1, lemon zest. So it was the zest of the lemon, not necessarily the fruit of the lemon. I really wanted to focus on the zest there, but there's still some fruit. Clue number 2, hay. And with hay, I'm starting to hint a little bit about some of the aldehydes, some of the biological agents with the floor. We'll come back to that. Clue 3, almond pastry. Clue 4, smoke. Clue 5, a caramel apple with nuts. So there's basically 3 clues were there. You had the apple, you had the caramel, and then you had the nuts. And then clue 6 was hazelnuts. So looking there, we have a mix. We have a mix of biological aging notes, those aldehydes there. So hay, bruised apple can be it. So the apple was in the caramel apple. Obviously it's covered in the caramel, so it's a little hidden, but it was hinting towards that. Chamomile is another one that could pop out, but this is not all about those aldehyde notes. What else did you see in that pattern of those notes I read off? A lot of oxidative notes. We had caramel, we had almonds, we had hazelnuts on that. Smoke, often long barrel age, introduced smoke. And going to the almond pastry, actually, go back to that pastry dough. That's another thing that kind of hints towards flour. And it's kind of interesting. And this is a really good practice if you're prepping for a Fortified exam or Sherry exam. Get Fino or Manzanilla, all flour aging, and then get an Amontillado and an Oloroso. So ones that have a little bit more biological, or excuse me, a little bit more oxidative aging. And smell them. You're gonna get kind of a doughy pastry note in both of them, but it's different. With the Fino and the Manzanilla, it's almost like unbaked bread dough. If you know somebody that bakes bread, or go to the store and get one of the Pillsbury French bread things and just open it up and smell that unbaked bread dough. That is kind of the note flour gives, that yeasty unbaked bread dough. But then once you introduce the oxidative aging in the barrel, then you're starting to get a little bit more baked bread or baked pastry note. For me, there's a little bit of that sweetness with the caramel involved, so thinking of pastry is really helpful for me. So when you start sticking your nose in that Amontillado or sticking your nose in the Oloroso, it's not unbaked bread anymore, it's more pastry dough on that aspect. So it's just something to think about with that. So those were the aroma and flavor clues. Now let's get to the color clue. And this was a big one. And this one really should have ruled out the Fino and Manzanilla for everybody. The color clue that I gave you was medium amber. And Fortified is probably the only wine exam that you really want to pay attention to color. Most wine exams, color is a good clue. It offers you one little piece of the puzzle, but you'd never want to read too much into it. With Fortified, you can read a lot into it because it tells you so much about the production that went into it. And I have an example here. I actually didn't have an Amontillado with me, so I have an Oloroso. But I have a Fino and an Oloroso. Biological aging, which is a very protective aging. The flour, it kind of scavenges the oxygen, doesn't let it touch the wine. So you have this very pale color, pale lemon, maybe medium lemon at most, but pale lemon is most definitely what you're going to be going with. And then as soon as you introduce oxygen, what's happening to it? This is a white wine. Palomino is a white grape. You're getting darker colors on it. And so a lot of people do get confusion with the WSET scale about color. So particularly among like gold, amber, and brown, lemon's kind of easy to figure out. So essentially gold is more yellow than orange. And then if you have more orange in the glass than yellow, kind of like this here, that's amber. And then brown is essentially more brown than orange. And so when you're practicing for a fortified exam, one of the best things you can do is kind of just create a rainbow of colors with all the different fortified wines that you have in your syllabus. And you're going to see these different color breakdowns on there. But knowing the difference between something that is completely protective, oxidative, so that lemon color, versus getting the darker, that's going to narrow your world of options of sherry quite a bit. Because with Amontillado, it does start life essentially as a pheno under floor, and then it gets fortified up to 17% at least to kill off the floor, and it spends the rest of its life aging in a barrel. So it has that mix of those aldehydes, those protective floor notes, and then the oxidative notes. This is the distinction of Amontillado that you want to look for. So let's continue with the clues there. Medium plus to pronounced intensity. There's usually a lot going on with sherries. Sherry's got a lot of different things from, you get a little primary, but those secondary notes, several clusters with that. Dry. This usually is a kind of a good distinction between, when you look at this darker color, between some of the Madeiras that will also have a similar like amber color, quite a few of them. Those often will have some sweetness to it. So if it's more on the drier side, think a little bit more sherry. But then the big distinction, especially against Madeira, low acidity. Palomino is not a super high acid grape, especially not compared to the Madeira grapes. And then in the warm climate there, in the sherry region, it doesn't have acid. It kind of feels a little bit sometimes because especially aldehydes, it kind of gets a little bit of that effect. But when you think about the mouth watering, it's not the same. And comparing a Madeira side by side with a sherry, you'll see the difference in how much your mouth is watering. Madeira is always going to be much higher acid on it. Body, medium to medium plus body. Especially with the oxidative aging, you're getting a little bit more of the glycerol, and so that fills in that round mouthfeel. If you want to know the difference kind of between Amontillado and like a Palo Cortado, but a Palo Cortado usually has more oxidative aging. So while there'll be similarities with the nose, Palo Cortado starts out kind of as a pheno as well, a little bit more oxidative aging, so it gets a little bit more of that Oloroso body with that. It's a little bit more that glycerol and a little bit more that mouthfeel. That's kind of a good distinction just to keep in mind. And then alcohol level, I put high, but I'm going to say, give me a mulligan here, because I probably should have put medium to high, because for the WSET scale for fortified, it changes for the fortified. It's a little skewed. So fortified scale, the cutoff between medium and high is basically 18.4% and to 16.4%. Apologize, drawing a blank there. That's like the kind of the medium range, but 18.5% and above is where you hit high. And so you'll find a lot of Amontillados in that like 18% range, 18.4, and then quite a few of them do go over 18.5 too high. And what makes those ones go up over that to the true high is you're thinking about what's happening in the barrel. That long aging, you're getting that evaporation. And when you're getting that evaporation, the concentration, and so the alcohol levels are going to go up on it. So I should have put medium to high instead of just straight high. So my apologies for that. But just remember that scale of fortified is a little bit different. So medium to high with that. And those are the clues with that. So if you have any questions, especially if you're having a fortified exam, I know a lot of folks have that next month here. Just like leave a little bit 2 weeks away. I think we're at the point. Don't hesitate to reach out to Noelle or myself. We're here for you. Definitely encourage with the practice. Doing that color scale is a really good one. So take care, and I'll get going on today's game. Have a good one.